much too complex, much too complex, too complex, too complex, too complex.
Good afternoon. My name is James K. Holder II. Some of you may know me as Sir James II, and I'd like to welcome you back to Not on My Watch. As always, I'd like to ask you to subscribe, like, comment, and share. I want you to retweet this and repeat this. I have to give a special thank you to everyone who signed up for our first 1,000 subscribers on YouTube channel. And as a result, as promised, I will be making this whole podcast available to you via an audio-only version, which is something people have been asking for a while. So look forward to that. There's a link in this video now. If you're joining me, today is August 9th, 1974. The president has just resigned. In a single tweet sent to Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, the former president states, "Dear Mr. Secretary, despite a huge electoral college victory, and I won bigly, I hereby resign the office of President of the United States." And of course, you know that was a ad-libbed version of Nixon's resignation letter to then Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. And so today is actually Wednesday, May 10th, 2017. Yesterday, we all saw the beginning of the crumbling, right? Like you saw all kinds of just people just going crazy, the media and everything, as President Donald Trump had the audacity to fire FBI Director James Comey. Now, I want to pull up this actual letter because this, I think, is very telling. It states, "Dear Director Comey, I have received the attached letters from Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General of the United States recommending your dismissal as the Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I have accepted their recommendation and you are hereby terminated and removed from office effective immediately. While I greatly appreciate you informing me on 3 separate occasions that I am not under investigation," pauses for a sign that says lie, "I nevertheless concur with the judgment of the Department of Justice that you are not able to effectively lead the Bureau. It is essential that we find new leadership for the FBI that restores public trust and confidence in vital law enforcement mission. I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors, Donald J. Trump." Now, I want to talk a little bit about the circumstances of this particular occurrence. One, Jim Comey, now let me just be clear. I have no emotions for Jim Comey. I will not shed a tear for that man. As Auntie Maxine, the mother of the resistance, said, FBI Director Comey has no credibility. So I have been off the Comey train since he released that letter that ultimately changed the election. Yesterday morning, we found out that the testimony he gave was actually inaccurate regarding the number of email correspondences between Huma Abedin and the Hillary Clinton and all of those issues. So there was basically an assertion made in a hearing that Comey made this argument that Huma Abedin had sent tens of thousands of emails or thousands of emails that were hidden and all this other stuff. And ultimately that turned out to not be true. So what we do know is that Jim Comey was making a presentation in I believe, Los Angeles, official business, when he was then as he's speaking to this crowd, the televisions behind him are showing up and displaying that he's been fired. Now, he thinks it's a joke. He continues on with his speech, and it turns out, like, sure enough, his people gather him and just say, okay, come follow us. We're going to go to this room over here. And he exits the room, rather peacefully. Now, I don't know if at this point, this man thinks he's about to be assassinated or murdered or what, but he knows he's been fired, and he knows that he's finding out in the same public forum that we are. The letter I just read to you was actually hand-delivered to his office, 7 blocks from the White House, about 10 minutes after we all found out, and the director himself found out via the media. So this is allegedly because, one, it's because of, Trump says that this firing is because of the whole Clinton email controversy, that was mishandled. Now, what's sad about this is that Donald Trump had previously praised Director Comey for his actions on that investigation and every step that he took with that. So we're just going to act like, as usual, certain things that Trump says are not worth covering. So we're just going to disregard that. It's also important to understand one thing, the timing of this. I have to pull up another tweet. There's going to be a lot of Twitter today. We have from a source. Now, I'm in a lot of Twitter groups and everybody posts information, and sometimes people get your hopes up. I talked about this on a previous episode, just about why I don't cover Trump-Russia so much, because there's so much speculation, there's so much assumptions and really unfounded information. On good authority, Claude Taylor, who is a former staffer within the Bill Clinton White House. Of course, we don't have a Hillary Clinton White House for him to be a member of the staff there. But it says, a source with knowledge of the investigation says that 9 sealed indictments came down in one case, with 16 more expected in others. Now, this had to do with specifically Michael Flynn's involvement in the Trump campaign. Now, one thing that happened recently, also, Monday, we heard sworn testimony by Sally Yates, who is, of course, a champion of the resistance. And there wasn't a lot that we were able to discern from the Sally Yates testimony. There were things that much of what she was being asked by the Senate were things that she wasn't really able to answer because she wouldn't be able to disclose confidential information without answering those questions. One thing that did happen, though, she read Ted Cruz for filth, so that Ted Cruz had to take an L there, and we'll be discussing Mr. Rafael Cruz, the Cubanadian, a little bit later on in the program. But Claude's coverage of this has been taken up by, of course, Keith Olbermann, who is another champion of the resistance. Shout out to Keith. Keith does a really good job of making it plain for all of us. And so he helped promote this story, and I remember Claude being really excited about the fact that sort of it was getting that validation. Of course, sure enough, you have CNN that is now trying to take credit for Claude's reporting when we know that is also not accurate, but that's neither here nor there. The biggest problem with this indictment, with this firing of Jim Comey, it's a few-fold. One, again, I don't shed any tears for Jim Comey, but Trump is trying to pitch this as though he's firing Jim Comey in the interest of fairness to Democrats, and that this is helping out the Democrats. We've seen this as recently as moments ago. Now, normally I don't report on Trump's Twitter. Of course, we have a whole logo here just for this topic. But as I sat down to record this cast, it's about 7 o'clock. Well, it's actually about 7:30 now. I had to delay it a bit because information was coming over Trump's Twitter. Now, this started right around 7:10 a.m. We get the first tweet from Donald Trump. Now, mind you, we hadn't heard much from Donald Trump before the firing of Jim Comey. Last night, what we got from Donald Trump, this was really close to midnight. We get crying Chuck Schumer stated recently, "I do not have confidence in him," meaning James Comey, any longer, then acts so indignant. Drain the swamp. Now, I think it's funny that Trump used the term drain the swamp as he then, skirted out Kellyanne Conrad to clean up his mess. So Kellyanne Conrad is on CNN, of course, which I don't watch, but she's there trying to clean it up. And I'm thinking, I thought people weren't interviewing Kellyanne Conrad anymore because she's a con artist and a liar and a fraud, just like everything else in this administration. But sure enough, we are knee-deep, if not neck-deep, in the swamp right now. Fast forward to 31 minutes ago. We get the first in a series of tweets from Donald Trump. 1. The Democrats have said some of the worst things about James Comey, including the fact that he should be fired, but now they play so sad. James Comey will be replaced by someone who will do a far better job bringing back the spirit and prestige of the FBI. Now, then we get this retweet from the Drudge Report talking about Mexico is the second deadliest country, and it even tops Afghanistan and Iraq. Okay, that's propaganda being retweeted by Donald Trump, our president. Now, ironically, this is the linked article is from CNN, but that's also, you can determine on your own whether CNN is officially propaganda at this point or still reports the news. I will leave that to your judgment. Next tweet from Donald Trump, approximately 16 minutes ago. This is around 7:30 a.m. Comey lost the confidence of almost everyone in Washington, Republican and Democrat alike. When things calm down, they will be thanking me. And then lastly, we get another retweet from the Drudge Report linking to 10 scandals on FBI Director Comey's watch. So the assault of Jim Comey is coming down from Donald Trump heavy this morning. I mean, it's like right now we're in the thick of it. So we know what the action is. It is not about protecting Hillary Clinton and the sanctity of her emails. It is not about protecting Huma Abedin or her ex-husband's private parts. It is very important to recognize a couple things here. One, Jeff Sessions is the one who made this recommendation. And I done told you about this slimy little possum, Jeff Sessions from Alabama, Jefferson Beauregard Sessions. If you will join me back down memory lane again in episode 3 of this cast entitled We Must Protect the Vote and episode 5 of this cast entitled Central Park Trees Bear Strange Fruit, I gave very specific details about my fears and anxieties, actual anxieties, not economic anxiety, which we've come to find out is made up. But that's neither here nor there. We know that Jefferson Sessions is probably the most dangerous element of this entire administration. And we've known that for some time. Jeff Sessions does not possess the integrity to serve as the head of the Department of Justice, and sure enough, he is acting in that role. Jeff Sessions, when confronted about lying to Congress in his confirmation hearing for that position, which he was narrowly confirmed by, I believe, about 1 vote in the Senate. A threshold of 1 vote in the Senate. It is unconscionable that this man who said he would recuse himself has now reached over a recusal, meaning he's not going to sit in on the hearings with Sally Yates. He's not going to sit in on the hearings from the Senate with Jim Comey, which will continue on Thursday, God willing. God willing, Jim Comey is still protected and with us. But this man has said he would recuse himself. And then, sure enough, Jeff Sessions lied. Jeff Sessions has now recommended and essentially enforced a firing of his subordinate, former FBI Director Jim Comey. So we are dealing with people who do not have scruples, okay? And we just got to call that out. Now, it's also important to notice that, again, I mentioned Jeff Sessions was confirmed by a very, very narrow margin. 1 of the votes to confirm Jeff Sessions. So we have to be weary of our Congress because they can't be trusted. Our GOP-run Congress, this includes the House of Representatives and the Senate, is patently untrustworthy. They are not capable of protecting us because we all knew that Jeff Sessions was incapable of performing this task appropriately. When he was confronted about his ties to Russia, they didn't force him to resign, they didn't force him out, and now he's overreached again with our president y'all's president, to now inject himself within this Trump-Russia hearing in a way that is quite telling. But I want to talk for a moment briefly about why Jeff Sessions is in that position. Again, we talk about narrow votes. Jeff Sessions was confirmed by about 1, maybe 2 votes in the Senate. Betsy DeVos was confirmed by 1 or 2 votes in the Senate, one of whose was Jefferson Beauregard Sessions. But one of the people who confirmed Jefferson Beauregard Sessions to lead the Department of Justice was Senator Ted Cruz, who just got his wig split on national TV when he tried to sort of give Sally Yates a little lesson, and she taught him a little something. I'm sure you all watched the hearing. It was every trending topic on Twitter at that moment had to do with that hearing or someone in that hearing. So I'm sure you all watched, and I don't need to recap that here because I don't have the rights to rerun footage like that. But, we have Jeff Sessions' phony recusal. We have Comey still set to testify. And there is a tweet from Eric Holder that I want you to kind of just take a moment and listen to. So again, I told you there's a lot going on. And all of this is really unfolding in the immediate space. Why is this important? We get a tweet from Eric Holder, the former Attorney General, from before Loretta Lynch. We all know this. No relation. And it says, to career men and women at DOJ, FBI, you know what the job entails and how to do it. Be strong and unafraid. Duty, honor, country. Now, this is Eric Holder don't tweet a lot now, but this is him literally calling for resolve from within the Department of Justice that he used to be the head of. He knows what the resources are and the tools at their disposal. Linking up to Claude's tweets and Claude's coverage of the Trump-Russia connection, it is important to recognize that we have 2 ways of moving forward with this, and we have to kind of assess where we are with this. One is that everyone's calling for an independent investigation into, a special prosecutor into the Trump-Russia ties, because we know that the FBI is compromised. The FBI, in my view, had been compromised from before the election. I mean, I didn't see Jim Comey as a faithful arbiter of this issue because he had been so heavy-handed in the election results themselves. But we're now counting on our GOP-led Congress to call on and enforce this to get a special prosecution on this, and I just don't see it happening. Now, there might be leaks, there might be things that will allow us to kind of move forward with damning information on President Trump that will, hopefully cause him to maybe resign, as Nixon did on that faithful day. In what year was that? I wasn't alive then, so I don't really know by heart. Walk back with me in memory lane. 1974. But from a man who has so little shame as to, on the day that he egregiously breaches his office and throws out precedent entirely, I don't have faith that this man is going to have the shame to resign. I just don't think it's going to happen. So I'm not really counting on that, but who knows? Stranger things have happened. We also would be counting on people like Ted Cruz, people like Lindsey Graham, people like, what's the guy's name? Ran for president, John McCain, to be our protectors in this and be the 3 votes we need, the 3 voices we need in the Senate to get a majority vote on an independent prosecution. But we got to remember, all three of these guys voted to confirm Jefferson Beauregard Sessions as the Attorney General of the United States. They trusted his judgment enough. So I don't see it. And what we have here now is a situation where you look at the healthcare, the AHCA passing the House. You look at all of the Senate confirmations for Trump's appointments. These are incompetent people now. And there is just a patent lack of fear. There is no fear of accountability from our Congress, because ultimately they have made themselves invincible. The GOP, as we've discussed before, has strong-armed the issue of voter suppression so heavily that I don't even think they're afraid to get voted out. I don't think they're afraid of 2018. They're going to keep this onslaught. They're going to keep going on along with Putin's agenda. They're going to keep going along with Trump. They're going to keep supporting him. They're going to keep going in this direction because they really have nothing to lose. They aren't going to lose their seats by and large, because between gerrymandering, voter ID, other forms of voter suppression, voter intimidation, and just propaganda, fake news, they have enough resources to strong arm our government as a minority in perpetuity until we basically just dissolve into nothing, and melt back into the sea. That's where I see this going. If we are counting on our GOP-led House and Senate. I mean, take this one example, right? Recently, a study came out of Wisconsin. Let me pull up this. Again, I told you there's going to be a lot of Twitter today. And we got to double back to Trump's Twitter also. This is from Ari Berman. What's up, Ari? Thank you for the reporting. Now, he brings up a new study that shows that Wisconsin's newly enacted voter ID laws, now this is after the gutting of the Voting Rights Act, suppressed 200,000 votes. This is just within the last election. The law that was enacted suppressed 200,000 votes in Wisconsin. And here's the data, here's the analysis behind it. It'll be on the screen. It says, while states with no change to voter identification laws witnessed an average increased turnout of about 1.3% from 2012 to 2016, Wisconsin's turnout, where voter ID laws changed to strict, dropped by 3.3%. If turnout had instead increased by the national no change average, we estimate that over 200,000 more voters would have voted in Wisconsin in 2016. For context, Clinton lost to Trump in Wisconsin by only 20,000 votes. We don't have a functioning democracy. We don't have legislators that are afraid of our vote. Our vote is not an empowered resource to protect ourselves from Vladimir Putin, from a dictatorship like Donald Trump. We simply, the decades of the strategy by the grand old party to put party before country has rendered our entire society, our entire democracy disabled. They've disabled our democracy. And we have to turn to simply what our resources are at our disposal. Now, let me just double check Trump's Twitter, because there's only one other thing I want to tell you about today. And it's really just, it is really quite remarkable. I want to make sure that Trump hasn't tweeted anything. You know, I don't follow him, so I have to go pull up his Twitter account in real time, because I do not follow this man, and I don't recommend that you do either. Okay, so nothing new in the last 20 minutes. But as of last night, we see that Rudolph Giuliani, aka Adolf Giuliani, was seen at Trump Tower, the Trump Hotel in Washington. What are you doing there? Like, what do you have going on, Rudy Giuliani? You are in the scope of this investigation, the same investigation that now Jim Comey was directing because Jeff Sessions recused himself. You have Attorney General or former federal, what was he? He was a federal prosecutor, Rudy Giuliani, meeting at Trump Tower. Okay, this seems like a plan to hatch something nasty. And I'm going to tell you this is where I get into the speculation mode, because I normally don't do this. If you remember, back before the election, just before the election, before even Rudy Giuliani made that slip up where he disclosed that he knew that the letter from Comey was coming out before Comey actually released the letter to the House of Representatives, to Jason Chaffetz, who has recently said that he was going to resign from the post of his House seat. From Utah, is he from? Doesn't matter. But we have Jason Chaffetz, we have Rudy Giuliani, both implicated within the scope of this investigation with Trump Russia. You got two available guys, both of whom could potentially be vying for this spot of the director of the FBI post. Because you remember, Rudy Giuliani wanted to be, I believe, the initial reports were that he was going to be who was the Attorney General. That was the original carved out post for Rudy Giuliani. And then after that, it was stated that Rudy Giuliani really wanted to be Secretary of State. And then Trump said, no, you're not getting Secretary of State. So Rudy Giuliani just kind of moseyed on off onto pasture. He really didn't say much. He got kind of quiet. Now, this is after Rudy Giuliani being very, very active in Trump's campaign up until that point. And I remember that being a very disappointing thing because it made me think maybe Rudy Giuliani isn't aware of what's going on. And because that transactional situation that we've always known about didn't come to fruition, I thought, okay, well, maybe Trump isn't as aware of all this stuff as we thought. Maybe there's something to this. Maybe there's something else. And now it's really revealing itself to me that, mark my words, within the next week, if Rudy Giuliani or Jason Chaffetz become speculative that they might take on this post of Jim Comey. Now, let me be clear. I don't think that the Senate should confirm any appointment for this post by Donald Trump. That's just out of the question. But I don't trust our Senate. I don't trust our House of Representatives. So I'm sure that whoever gets put up will be confirmed. And mark my words, it will be either Jason Chaffetz or it will be Rudy Giuliani to take over Trump's post. And mind you, both of these people are ultimately implicated in the spreading of that message from just before the election that Hillary Clinton claims is a large part of why she lost that election. I would argue that GOP decades of voter suppression efforts that culminated in the gutting of the Voting Rights Act and 2016 election being the first election without the full protection of the VRA also had more damning effect on Hillary Clinton than probably anything that anyone else did, that any other outside force did. And I want to just tell you a little story about a guy named Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is only a senator in Texas because he filled a post that was available after an appointment or a resignation. There was a special election in Texas, followed by a special runoff election in this summer in Texas. Due to incredibly low voter turnout, this guy, who is, as far as we can tell, as best as we can tell from everything he says, is completely untrustworthy, completely incompetent. Perfect fit for the Trump administration, by the way. But that he simply got in under the wire because there was no one else. There was no real talent available to fill that post. And because of unprecedented voter suppression in in Texas, he was able to grab that seat. That one seat led to one vote being cast for Betsy DeVos to confirm. The one vote to confirm Jeff Sessions as Attorney General. And another vote that will confirm either Rudy Giuliani or Jason Chaffetz as the next director of the FBI. Mark my words. Now, why is this important? It comes down to one vote. Every single vote counts. We talk about the 20,000 versus the 200,000 votes in the Wisconsin election that had a contributing factor to Hillary Clinton not winning. You could argue all day long, well, Hillary Clinton should have campaigned in Wisconsin. Even if she talked to each and every one of the 200,000 disenfranchised people in Wisconsin and shook their hands personally and went home and washed their dishes and vacuumed their rugs, took out their trash and made them steak dinners, she still would have lost Wisconsin because those people have been robbed of their right to vote in that state. Heavily within the Milwaukee region, no doubt. And so we really have to be careful about that. And this brings me back to a little bit of refresher on what occurred last week. Now, last week I sat down with Nsé Ufot, who is the executive director of the New Georgia Project, one of the plaintiffs in a suit that alleged that the law in Georgia, in the state of Georgia, was restricting voters from registering on time for the runoff election featuring Jon Ossoff for the 6th congressional seat of Georgia. I am happy to report, if you didn't see it already, that they won that case. They were co-plaintiffs along with 5 other civil rights organizations, including the NAACP, and they ultimately proved that the restriction, the 90-day block that the state of Georgia was trying to put on new voters, saying basically that someone who wasn't able to vote in the original election should not be able to vote in the runoff with Handel and Ossoff, was essentially against our voting rights. And so the date to register for that particular election was restored to May 22nd, which means we have 12 days to register all eligible voters in the 6th congressional district of Georgia. You can do so right now by, if you know anybody who lives in the 6th district or you live in the 6th district, make sure you do this right now. Go to www.mvp.sos.ga.gov. That is the My Voter page. MVP, it's named that for a reason. You can be the MVP in our country. You can be the MVP for the resistance right now, because this election coming up is the most important piece that we have going on. This race is close. Polls are close, and we know that polls do not accurately reflect voter suppression efforts. So we need to make sure that we get everybody to the polls on June 20th. But in order to do that, we need to make sure that everybody who is eligible is registered to vote by May 22nd. So do that. Send people this link. Send people that link. Make sure that people who are eligible to vote in that district are making sure they are taking advantage of their right to vote and participating. It is critically important that we do that. And that is always the case. I will assume that Trump has not tweeted anything else in the last 5 minutes since I've checked his Twitter. So that's where we are. We know that we have a compromised system. We know we have an unconscionable president who is operating as a dictator. We know that he has fired everyone who has been in a position to rein him in or made them disappear. So we're talking about Sally Yates, fired her. She testified this week. Jim Comey just fired him. Preet Bharara fired him. And Nunes, he basically neutralized Nunes, so neutered Nunes. So like, everybody who could play a role in stopping Trump on the legal front has been neutralized by Trump in some way, or has been stalled by them. And our Congress simply can't be trusted. So the only power that we have right now, the only thing within our 3 walls, we have 3 things that we can do. 1, register to vote in the Georgia 6th District, contribute to Jon Ossoff's campaign, help volunteer, anything you can do to help get Jon Ossoff elected to that 6th congressional seat in the state of Georgia on June 20th in 2016. There's a big march coming, the March for Truth. And this is a march that's happening on June 3rd all over the country. You can follow the link in this post to see how you can be involved with that effort. that is going to be critically important. And lastly, you have other races that are coming up and other challenges. And so I do want to just make you aware that another colleague of mine that I follow via Twitter, David Yankovich in Wisconsin, he is a Democratic challenger for Paul Ryan's seat. Now, if we unseat Paul Ryan, that is a huge step in the right direction, especially if we can unseat a Democratic candidate. So that's also in Wisconsin, where we see there has been rampant voter suppression, at least 200,000 people. And so with the laws that are in place in Wisconsin, it's going to take a full force of effort. We have got to put everything behind this challenger. He's a vet. He's a good guy. And there's more information at the link on David. But I highly recommend that you look into David, consider supporting him, consider supporting his race. And those are 3 things that you can do today. So with that, I always want to thank our friends of the show. Today, I am just eternally grateful for all the support that I get for the show. We have SER from Bowie, Maryland. We have Curtis W. from Carlsbad, California. We have Jesse E. from Twitter. What's up, Jesse? We have John C. from Los Angeles, California. A lot of love from Cali today. We also have Derek P. What's up, Derek? DP from Encino, California, the Valley. We have Megan K. from Allen, Texas. We have Jason B. from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Come on now, Jason. I know you hear me on this. The voter suppression is rampant. We got to do something about it. We have Ian A. from Twitter also. And lastly, we have Stacy R. from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania being another one of those states that is, it's tricky. We're looking at it. And so, remain focused. There's a lot going on. I want you to keep calm and just don't get too distracted by what you see on Trump's Twitter, what you see on the media. There is a path forward. I don't know what it is yet. We will see in the days to come. But as always, I'd like to ask you to relax. Oh, sorry. If you'd like to donate to this podcast, this show, you can do so by visiting the link www.paypal.me/JKH2. If you contribute $1, you'll help me buy coffee for this program. If you contribute more than $1, you'll help me buy a lot of coffee for this program. I'm definitely trying to expand and keep this thing going. And I appreciate all the support I get. So thank you for your support, for everyone who has supported the show up to this point. And I just want to continue to encourage you to donate if you can. $1 is great. I just like to be able to have people that are listed as supporters. So with that, I'd like to call you to relax, relate, and resist. Thank you.
Too complex.